Hello and welcome to another episode of The 10, your favorite Big Ten football betting show, live on the Bet Rivers Sports Network. I am your host, Greg Waddell, joined today, as always, by Doug Kezirian. We are going to preview every single Big Ten football game for Week 7 and give you our official best bets along the way. Reminder, this show is part of College Sports Rush, where you can get tons of great content from the Bet Rivers Sports Network. We also have a pretty awesome promo going on for you right now. It is our college football squares, where players who place a qualifying same game parlay of at least $10 on eligible NFL or NCAA football games will receive one standard entry into the weekly squares game. Winning standard squares will be awarded a prize of a $20 bonus bet. You can see the app and the website for more details. Let's get right into it today. We are going to start with a ranked matchup between the number one team in the country, the Ohio State Buckeyes, making their way to Champaign to take on Brett Bielema's Illinois, fighting Illini. The Buckeyes 14.5-point road favorites. Our total is 50.5. We've gone back and forth on this one a bit this week, Doug. What do you like?
I think the number does feel a little high, but the Buckeyes continue to answer a lot of questions, right? They dismantled Minnesota, only allowed 3 points, basically a bye week. And this Illini team has been loose defensively than we expected during some stretches. Now, are they as bad as they looked against Indiana? Of course not. But that's the best opponent they have faced. And I think what they did to Duke was really impressive. But I feel like that team's long gone with the injuries on defense that you've mentioned, Greg, throughout the season. So I'm going to stick with my team total, Ohio State over. I think that's the best way to play it in the 33 range. And I just think there's more ways to win this without covering the 14 and a half. So, for example, 34-24 gets you the team total victory. So why do that? Because there's a chance. I just think there's more likely that they go, 35-27, one of those wins, as where they go over the team total and don't cover the spread. Whereas if they went under the team total but did not cover the spread, like 31-10. So I think Illinois can get some points, even though Ohio State, according to defensive efficiency metrics, second in the nation. But I think Altmaier's done some impressive things. They're at home. The Buckeyes, are capable, just like any team, of playing with their food. But I do think Saban's getting better. We all saw the throw when he had a guy in his face. He went deep, but for the most part, he's still a freshman quarterback on the road. I just think the points will get there against this bad Illinois defense, but you just never know with that spread. It feels like there's an extra couple points on it. I feel like it should be 12 and a half. So I'll go with the team total over for the Buckeyes.
I'm aligned with you on the over. I'm going to take the game over here. It's up to 50.5. It was 49.5 earlier in the week when I got it. I don't mind it all the way up to around 52. To me here, Illinois is a football team that has made it pretty clear they want to play high scoring games. I mean, obviously that backfired a little bit in the Indiana game when it became clear their offense just couldn't keep up. But I mean, even early in the season, that Duke game, they hung 45 on a Duke team. It wasn't like they went to that game on the road and were trying to game manage their way through it. In recent weeks here, with the secondary injuries that have plagued Illinois a little bit, their last three totals in Big Ten play have ended at 73. And that was the Indiana game. They only scored 10 points in, 66 against USC in a noon kick in Champaign, and then 70 against Purdue last week. These are going way over anything in the 50s. We know Ohio State's going to score in this game. I'd be stunned if Ohio State isn't sniffing 35 to 42 points in this game. And if they get there, all we're banking on is 1 to 2 drives from Illinois. I think Luke Altmaier at home in that noon kickoff spot they've been comfortable in is comfortable enough delivering on that. So give me the over. Doug's taking a team total over. We are aligned heading into our second game on the card this week. It is UCLA at Michigan State. The Bruins with a come together, save our season win that I think we had a magnifying glass out looking for a couple weeks ago. None of us saw it coming against Penn State, but here we are. Now they take their trip to East Lansing against a Spartan team with their back against the wall. Michigan State by 8 at home. The total 54.5 here. What do you like, Doug?
I tell you in the first midway through the first quarter, because that's I think what we're going to learn. Because there's two sort of huge forces involved here. One is the obvious flat spot of all flat spots for the Bruins, right? Monster win. They carry the coordinator off, but not the interim head coach off the field. Just fantastic win for the Bruins in a season that was obviously spiraling the wrong way. But then they have to go, on top of the flat spot, it's a noon Eastern kick, so it's a 9 a.m. body clock game. Now, the flip side of that is maybe they figured some things out, right? Maybe this quarterback who couldn't get anything going is a little mobile. The new OC, they're outperforming their power ranking, which is formulated or calculated by stats from during the Deshaun Foster era. So maybe this team is a lot better than we think because of the changes they've made. And Michigan State, not exactly a dominant team. Now, their metrics aren't awful. So like they're come back to earth, but still they're 50th in offense, 73rd in defense. So it's if this got to 7, I think I would have to take Sparty, but I'm really torn, and I think I'll know if the Bruins show up early on.
Yeah, I lean Michigan State here. Just simple, total back against the wall spot for Jonathan Smith here. Like this,
Yeah.
this might be a save your job spot. As crazy as that sounds, only in year 2. God forbid if they lost this game at home. I think the writing would be on the wall and it'd be free fall for Michigan State. Emotional swing for UCLA. The trip across the country. It's a treacherous spot for a variety of reasons. There's not a lot to like about this Michigan State team. There's really not. But as long as Aiden Childs has gotten back to 100%, he looked banged up in the second half. This is a team that can put points on the board. I will note, only once in Jonathan Smith's year and a half as Michigan State's head coach have they won a Big Ten game by more than 7 points. And it was last year against Iowa in a similar spot to this, where they kind of had their teeth kicked in, had lost 3 straight, and it's kind of like they're in free fall. This is it, or the season falls apart. And they had a really inspired win over Iowa last year. So I don't know if that's coming. I think Michigan State has better players than UCLA, despite the schematic changes, but it's not a strong play for me. It's just a lean to Michigan State to cover the number at 8 right now. Let's move to Northwestern at Penn State. The aforementioned Nittany Lions. Talk about back against the wall. If this team wants anything to come from this season, they need a statement win with style points with it. 22-point favorites at home here. Our total is 48. What do you see here, Doug?
If I had not played Penn State a couple times this year, I'd be laying it with the Nittany Lions. I'm just I can't go, can't keep throwing good money on a bad team. So I'm going to lay off from a personal standpoint. But if I was in a pick'em league, I would take the Nittany Lions. I think it's a spot where you have to play them. I don't think there's going to be a 2-week hangover off that loss in overtime at home in the whiteout game to Oregon. I still maintain this team's got enough talent to cover this number. And we know Franklin's, a little bit on the hot seat here, likes to play bully ball and cover the big numbers. Northwestern is certainly limited. This could be a get right game for the Nittany Lions and Happy Valley, but I can't step to the window and fire because I've lost a couple wagers on this team and I'm done with them.
I have the same shakiness you do with James Franklin's squad right now. I want nothing to do with this team until I see it to believe it once. Maybe Troy can help us. Let's welcome Troy Machir into the show. Can you give us any reasons why we or the public should put our faith in James Franklin, Troy?
No, I cannot. It's funny. 61% of the spread money is on Northwestern, but 72% of the tickets are on the Nittany Lions. And if you've watched them at all this year, I don't know how you can back this team to cover 22. I think they could win by 17 or 20, but they've had some bad beats. They haven't showed up in big spots. Yes, they are markedly better than Northwestern. And I do think they'll win the game. Here's something interesting. So Penn State, to win on the money line, they're minus 2,000. There's no value there. Maybe if you have a 20-leg parlay, you throw it in there. This is the most wagered on play of Saturday. We've taken several big bets on Penn State. Maybe this is a Philadelphia fan just trying to get a win after what seems like a week of losses across Major League Baseball and Penn State. So maybe they're just trying to get a win. But that is very unique to see so much money, days in advance of a game being thrown on such a short favorite, especially a team that, certainly they had to go out west and, a huge letdown spot. But like that just is very, very peculiar to me. But there is no faith in this Penn State team to cover. That means they probably will. This is the perfect get right opportunity, and Northwestern is limited offensively. But what have we seen from Penn State to lead us to believe that they're finally going to get it right? They really needed to hit rock bottom in order for it to happen. But I suppose that's why, we bet on sports like this, and I suppose that's why they play the game.
Yeah, you did mention a bad beat too earlier in the season. They had that final play touchdown that keeps that winless against the spread record true. So, all right, thank you, Troy. We'll get you back in here for more data soon on a few more of these matchups. Let's move to Nebraska at Maryland here. I don't know what to make of the Terps. Speaking of teams we don't know what to make of here, they looked incredible through 3 quarters against Washington, and then had one of the big collapses of the entire season. I don't know that we're going to see many teams blow a 20-point lead in the fourth quarter the way Maryland did last week, but the eye test tells me there's still some talent here, and that Malik Washington's been a very good quarterback for them. 6.5-point dogs at home against Dylan Raiola and the Cornhuskers. The total's at 47. Do you like anything in this game, Doug?
No, and I think you just touched on it. Why? You got to play amateur psychologist sometimes in this racket of sports betting, and I just worry where the Terps, heads are. Right? I mean, that's a brutal loss. And look, you turn the page. They're obviously experienced athletes. You turn the page. They have a good opponent coming in. It's not like they are laying 30 against an FCS school or something like that. So Nebraska should have their attention. I just don't know enough of the makeup of this squad or this locker room really to know I can grab under a touchdown here. This Nebraska team kind of flying under the radar a little bit, right? They're having a solid season. The lone loss was Michigan. It was a solid performance at home in Lincoln. They could have won that game. So I think they're taking care of business so far. They took care of business against Sparty. Sometimes they do it in their signature way, like the opener against Cincinnati, and they really had every chance to lose that game. But they've gotten the job done. Matt Rule's got this train on the tracks. So I would probably lean Nebraska, but it would be such a leap of faith just because of that demoralizing loss in the Terps. But they haven't showed us they can't bounce back from that.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I struggle because really I was on Maryland last week and I was just in heaven. I turned the game off and then I came back 20 minutes later. Like, what happened? I went back and watched some film of the fourth quarter, and it was just a complete and utter meltdown, a composureless meltdown. It looked like they had a freshman quarterback that the wheels were spinning for him, right? And look, it does scare me because Raiola is a little bit more experienced, but I think these teams are more similar in terms of talent than they let off at first glance here. Both these teams want to air it out. They've been pretty prolific through the air. Neither team can really run the ball. It's 2 reasons that I am going to officially take the points and add Maryland to my card here. Number one, Nebraska has a pretty crazy turnover margin this year. They've only committed 3 all season. They forced 9. I don't think a 3-1 turnover margin can continue throughout all of Big Ten play, especially against a Maryland team that's been pretty great at taking care of the ball. And then lastly, for me, I just feel like even though Nebraska's sitting here at 4-1, they're 0-3 against the spread against Power 5 teams this year. And I don't know if that's going to last either. Obviously, I expect them to cover at some point in the Big Ten, but I think they're a little bit of a sheep in wolf's clothing right now. Matt Rule on the road, giving up almost a touchdown, is a spot I'd almost always circle. So give me Maryland plus 6.5. I had to talk myself into it to get there, but I'm there. Troy, is there any data that can back up that the public is with or against me here on Maryland?
Yeah, absolutely. 68% of the money, 73% of the tickets on Maryland. Maryland, here's the big trend. And we mentioned it last week for the Washington game. Maryland, after losing at home to Washington, has now lost 9 of their last 10 games at home against Big Ten opponents. That is dreadful. I see this game very similarly to last week's game against Washington. I think it's probably going to be around a 3 or 4 point game. I think there's probably going to be a lead blown because of a fluky turnover. Maryland, this is who Maryland is. They're a good team. They pick up their wins early in the season, and then they try to get 1 or 2 in conference play to become bowl eligible. I think there is a gap between the tier that Nebraska is in and the tier that Maryland is in the Big Ten. And I think that the talent is going to benefit Nebraska. But like you said, they 0-3 against the spread against power conference teams. Maryland is competitive. It's not like they just stink at home. They just can't finish the job. The really interesting play for me here would be the over. Like I said, I think this game is going to be very similar to the Washington game. And that game was played in and around the 50s, 27, 24, something like that. I could see something very similar where Nebraska wins by 4 or 5. It's over 47. And so Maryland covers, Nebraska wins, and the over hits. However, I was very confident in Maryland winning last week outright, and that was not the case. So take that with a grain of salt. But, like I said, Maryland needs to win one of these games at home to prove that they are actually trending in the right direction and not kind of a fraudulent above average team. And I think Nebraska, who we've criticized for the last 5 years about being a fraudulent above average team, is trending in the right direction. So the public is on Nebraska to win outright, but is also very strong on Maryland to cover at home.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. A little bit split there then between the money versus the tickets, but yeah, I don't know. In my gut, it would be very Matt Rule to feel like he's finally turned the corner and then just lose to a Maryland team that imploded last week. We move on here. Big spot in this game. I would call this one the game of the week, although Illinois, Ohio State fans could argue me on it, but it's Curt Cignetti's Hoosiers going out west to Dan Lanning's Ducks. A lot of respect between these two superstar coaches. They get it done in different ways, but we know both of these programs can hang points on the board. And I think both of these programs can say and mean it. They have college football playoff, if not national championship aspirations this year. The Ducks are favored by 7 at home, totals at 53.5. Earlier this week, Doug, you were on the side of the Hoosiers here. Are you still on that side?
Yeah, I just misread the market though. I thought 7.5 would be a kind of a bounce back number because it came down from double digits. I'm hoping the market will go back up. I don't think it'll go below 7. But I also said I didn't think it'd go below 7.5. But I think it's the right side, the Hoosiers. Oregon, that performance against Penn State, I think we have to knock it down a little bit. This Nittany Lions team may not be that good, and I think IU can run all over this team. I really do. And this is not the teams with a Chip Kelly when they had electric, overwhelming speed. I think IU can hang with them. They might have the better quarterback in this game, to be honest. The skill position players are solid. I'm not going to take 7. I want 7.5. Hopefully the market can come back. But either way, I think the Hoosiers are a live dog at Autzen Stadium. I think Zignetti's got these guys believing in themselves. And I'm annoyed that they didn't cover at Iowa, and that was a bad game. I was shocked by the lack of offensive execution, but Kinnick Stadium can be a tough place to play. The Ducks are good. The Ducks are good. And if they cover, I won't be shocked at all. But I have to take the Hoosiers here. I think this is a really strong, team on both sides of the ball.
I think I've convinced myself to stay away here as much as I want to stand right with you and take Indiana. I mean, I think not that you should ever bet with what's fun or what your heart tells you to do, but taking a full touchdown with Curt Cignetti is usually a fun place to be until you look at how last year's results went in these games. We've just seen such lopsided versions of this Indiana team. Like, obviously that Illinois result is such an anomaly. And then you look at some of their worst performances. You mentioned the Iowa game. I don't think Iowa is any good. And I understand going to Kinnick Stadium is tough, but to kind of need down to the final minute just to secure a victory against Iowa does scare me as a data point on this team. So for me, I kind of want to see more on who Indiana is against real opponents. We know they've got a tough schedule down the stretch here. If there was a play for me, it would be Indiana plus the points. But with the way that number's moving, to your point, Doug, it's not favorable to the side I want to be on. So I'm staying away. Let's get Troy back in here for a few more notes on this. What can you tell us, Troy?
Yeah, this game is the game of the week in the eyes of the bettors. Oregon to win is the second most wagered on play of Saturday. Oregon to cover is the fourth most wagered on play. Indiana to cover is the third most wagered on play. Oregon to cover is the second most popular play. This is everyone is going to be betting on this game. A fascinating split here is that 93% of the money and 84% of the tickets are on Oregon. That indicates a very strong portion of the population thinks that Oregon is going to win this game. Now, granted, it's at home. They've won, I believe, 18 straight at home. There's a time difference. This is one of Indiana's lone tough games. We've criticized them for not having a very strong strength of schedule. But Indiana's still a top 10 team. They're electric on offense. I'm a little surprised that it's so strong in the direction of Oregon. And one other thing I will mention is that, when we spoke on Wednesday, the over-under was 55. And Doug has mentioned that this is not the same Oregon Speedy Ducks of 5-10 years ago. And I was, incredibly strong on being over 55 within Indiana team, I think, is just full of track stars and they want to get out and run. This number has come down to 53.5. Right now, 60% of the money's on the over, 84% of the tickets. So I'm wondering if I was wrong on that, or if Doug is right, and that this game will be played, fast, but not as fast as I think the media and we and myself like to believe that these two teams are just going to get out, roll the ball out, and sprint until the end.
All right, thank you,
Yeah,
Troy.
I like
as
under.
always.
The more he talks it out, I think under's the good call there. I think that's a good read.
Ooh, all right. Is that a late add to the card, Doug? We'll get your final best bets
let's
in the
late
show.
add. I think that's a strong play. I mean, remember, this was a rock fight at Happy Valley for that whiteout game. Oregon, obviously, Dan Lanning's changed the tone of this Ducks team. This is not the sieve defensively that we saw in other previous good, high-ranked Oregon teams. So this could be a really, 23-20, one of those games. It's not an astronomical number, but both these defenses are pretty highly ranked. And I just talked about the Hoosiers the last time they went on the road, and you mentioned it too, Greg. So I think under is the only way to play the total, to be honest.
All right, a late ad from Doug Kezirian, the most dynamic sports bettor in Big Ten football betting. You got to love it. All right, we've got 3 more games on the card here for Week 7. Let's move to Iowa and Wisconsin. Speaking of low-scoring football games, our total here is 37. The Hawkeyes favored by 3 in Camp Randall. Last time we were in Camp Randall, fire fickle chants were raining down from Badger fans. This could be a weird game in more ways than one. Any thoughts, Doug?
Yeah, I can just see the Iowa fans with their punt T-shirts on and rooting on this game. Lowest total of the season in the Big Ten. I'm not sure about the rest of the country. Under's the only way I would play it. I don't think it's going to be one of those, Brian Ferentz, when he was the OC, these vintage, 10-9 games. I do think we'd see teams in the end zone, but 37 is not all that high. Sorry, not all that low. If you start out a little slow, that live total is going to creep down in the 34 range. I would look to play the under, honestly, if I had to play this game in terms of anything side or total. I do think Iowa's the better team, and I think Iowa gets it done. I don't think much of this Wisconsin team. They hung around with Michigan, but that's Underwood on the road. He's been so shaky on the road. He's like throwing for like 100 yards on the road. Not that Iowa offense is anything more dynamic. I think this could be a pretty pedestrian thing. The question is, the Hawkeyes really sort of brought it against Indiana at home. The question is, can the Hawkeyes bring that intensity, that flying around defense? That would be my only concern here. Are they human? Do they play sort of a normal approach? Some of those Hawkeyes teams of yesteryear, if you will, brought it every game, were maniacs, special teams. I just don't see that in this team. So I think they can kind of, they can play a normal level of effort, I guess is a way to put it. So I'm not going to rush to the window to bet it, but it's Iowa and under is the only way I would look to it.
Yeah, under's the only way I want any part of either of these teams. I had the Wisconsin-Michigan under last week, and I would love to sit here and say, let's jump on under. But at 37, it's just too low for my liking. I never want to bet an under that's below 40. So stay away from me. Troy, back to you one more time here. What notes do you have for us on how they're betting this one?
I love Iowa unders. I love low totals in Iowa games. It's one of those betting trends where it's just like it's a total heart bet. There's not a lot of head going into it, but I like finding anomalies like this. What was it, 2 years ago, where they played in a game that I think the total was like 29.5 and the final score was 9-6 or something. It's one of those where if the over hits it, you won't be mad because it's just like fun, weird. It's such an anomaly in college football. 60% of the money's on the under, but 90% of the tickets are on the over. Obviously, people love betting overs, and it's such a low number. The really unique thing here is the spread. 93% of the money and 86% of the tickets are on Iowa to cover. That's the strongest percentage of spread split on the money and the fourth strongest on the tickets. Iowa has covered the spread in 4 of its last 5 games coming off a loss. And Wisconsin, we know, is just a shell of a program it used to be. I'm a little surprised to see the public so strong on an Iowa team that, as we mentioned, cannot really score points, but they seem to be the better team in this spot. But it is a little surprising to see a road team in a power conference game backed by over 90% of the money, in just a 3-point game.
All right. Thank you, Troy. I'm with you, Troy. I love an Iowa under from time to time. We'll see if I can talk myself into that as we get closer to Saturday. 2 more games for us on the card. We move to Purdue at Minnesota. Barry Odom's first year as the Boilermakers head coach. They've shown signs of inspired football and improved play. Hasn't necessarily resulted in the win column being boosted up yet. On the road against a PJ Fleck Gopher squad that's favored by 7.5 here. Our total's 49.5. If you wanted Purdue money line, you're getting almost 2.5 to 1 here. Doug, anything you like here?
I lean Minnesota. I think this Purdue pass defense is such a train wreck, and obviously some of the opponents they've played lately makes it look worse than it was. I mean, they've played some good teams. Gophers got a dose of reality last week against Ohio State, but I think they bounced back. This is a game where they should win, not incredibly comfortably, but they should win this by double digits and not have to sweat it out. Purdue has too many self-inflicted wounds. PJ Fleck will have his guys ready. They need this game for their sort of aspirations of bowl games and everything. They can't mess around. Purdue's been a nice story, like you said. Barry Odom's got things definitely turned around. They're no longer the incompetent team that we saw last year in conference play, but Minnesota can't mess around. The Cal game that they lost got away from them. It was tough road spot, such situation like that. I think this is a team that we're going to see sort of meet the expectations that we had coming into the season. Not that they haven't yet, but I think this number's too low. I would have made this number 10.5.
Ooh, big gap there. 3-point gap between
Yeah.
what you can get it at versus what Doug likes it at. I don't love the number personally. Just 7.5 doesn't. It's not my football number I'm looking for with Minnesota. Now, I totally agree with you. If it was 6.5, it would be mispriced. But that's probably the number I'd be looking for to back the Gophers here. I think Purdue's fared reasonably well as an underdog, not necessarily resulting in won tickets yet, but like even that Illinois game, I thought they moved the ball at will and had a couple fluke turnover plays that worked against them. It was similar against USC a couple weeks ago. So I'm in a spot where I weirdly trust the Purdue offense to go on the road and score in a primetime game like this enough that I wouldn't want to fade it, at least not over a touchdown, because we're probably just going to see a game where Purdue doesn't turn the ball over and is right there with an opponent. I don't think Minnesota's all that good. I'm with you, they're better than Purdue, and you would think you get the best version of PJ Fleck's squad given kind of the spot in the season, but it's not a football number that I like enough to add to my card, even though I hear your reasoning and agree with your reasoning, Doug. One more game here. It's Michigan at USC. Fun one here out west. The Trojans favored by 2.5. Michigan money line plus 112 if you wanted to back the Wolverines. Our total's up to 57.5, up 1.5 from where it was earlier in the week. Doug, any thoughts?
I don't really understand this game, this line. I think USC is still on track with their postseason aspirations. Yes, they would have preferred a win in Champaign, but they've had a couple tricky situations, like they had an injury the day before, or I think there was like food poisoning or something. Either way, I think this USC off a bye with a better defensive coordinator this year than they've had in years past should be just fine against this Wolverines rushing attack. Underwood, he's going to get better. Maybe he's getting better significantly by mid-October, but he's still a freshman on the road. And his 2 games he's been on the road so far, he's thrown barely over 100 yards. I think the coaching edge, especially off a bye, massively in USC's favor. I'm going to roll with the Trojans here. Look, it wouldn't stun me if the Maize and Blue won, but this number I felt should have been 4, maybe even 4.5. I get it. They were 5.5 at Oklahoma with Machir, but that number was wrong. That should have been 8.5. So I don't think this Wolverines team is all that. Yeah, they took care of business against Nebraska and whatnot. This is a different ask. I'll go with the men of Troy here.
I'm right there with you in terms of surprise at the line, and I'm also surprised not only where it opened, but I'm surprised it hasn't moved in favor of the Trojans at all
Right.
throughout the week. I thought this would get above a field goal, and it hasn't. Um, to me, I think the first quarter of this game is going to be huge, and I'm not getting cute. Throwback to my Ohio State Ohio play a couple weeks ago here, but I really think if USC can jump on Michigan early, they could run away with this. If this gets into a game script where Michigan needs Bryce Underwood to air it out to try and keep up with the USC passing game, I think they're just cooked. However, I don't know if I'm trying to talk myself into why would this number be 2.5. If Michigan opens up a 7-0 lead and kind of just grinds out a 7.5 minute drive, suddenly it's a totally different football game. So, as someone that has USC on my card for best bets for the week, I'm keeping it there. I'm just really praying we get the start to the game that we need here because I can see two very different football games depending on how the first quarter goes in this game. All right. I think we've made it through our entire card for week 7. It is time, as always, to wrap the show with our best bets. Doug, what do you have this week?
I've been torn because I want to take USC. I want to take the um Hoosiers in the big showdown, but I do think the team total's the way to play this with the Buckeyes. I just think the offense is opening up. I don't think there's going to be much resistance from this Illinois team. The Illini also, like you said, they want to play high scoring games. They don't necessarily matriculate up the field. So even if they get their offense going, Buckeyes can answer. And if the Ohio State defense all of a sudden shuts down this Illinois team, maybe they win a 28-10 game. Fine. But I just think there's a lot more ways to win than lose. So I will go with the Hoosiers. The Buckeyes over their win total, and it should be 33.5. I'm trying to find it here on the Bet Rivers platform and on the website and not fit. But I know yesterday we were talking about it, and that's where it is. So I will roll with them.
I like that play. I endorse that play and support you. I'll be cheering for you this weekend, Doug. I even if the game goes the way you just floated as like how this could lose, I still think Ohio
Mhm.
State might get to like 35-38 in a in
Right.
a in
It's
a
not a
game.
big number.
Right, it's not. So I love that. I am gonna get a little cute here after taking in all of Doug's thoughts and Troy's inputs as well throughout the show. I've landed on a 3-team parlay as my best
Cool.
bet for the week, and you might not like it once you hear it, Doug. We'll see. I'm taking Michigan State on the money line to beat UCLA. I'm adding Penn State on the money line to beat Northwestern just for a little extra juice. But the big leg we need, I'm taking Oregon to beat Indiana outright. I don't want anything to do with that 7 number as we talk through that game. The heart wants to back Signetti on the road, but there is a history here of when he goes up against the best of the best, that there is a caliber difference. And that's not to say Indiana couldn't win this game, could not cover. I do think they're improved. I think they're better. But I think Michigan State and Penn State are winning their games. I don't see a path to upsets in either of those. If you can get me down to minus 118 odds for Oregon to just take care of business at home against Signetti, who's a 7-point underdog, I'll take that every day of the week. And that's what this 3-leg parlay is at Bet Rivers. So my best bet of the week, Michigan State, Oregon, Penn State, 3 home teams to each win outright. It's a parlay at minus 118. Doug's taking the Ohio State team total over. A couple fun best bets for you for week 7. I'm feeling good about this. Doug, any input on the parlay I floated? I know I'm going against your Hoosiers.
Oh, I like it. I was playing around with something, and it's funny you mentioned Penn State because I think it was like a 28-cent boost or benefit. I was like, is it worth it? Yeah, it kind of is. They should handle their bit. They're just so much better at home. Again, the dust has settled from that hangover, if you will. I like it. Look, there's a reason this number's been hanging around that 7.5 and 7. It's a good way to play. It is the Ducks at home. I agree that there's evidence that Indiana's been outclassed at times. I just don't think there's a lot of evidence that they can't measure up. This isn't James Franklin 4-18 mark or something like that. It's last year they lost to the eventual national champion in the Buckeyes. Yeah, that Notre Dame game got away from them, but early on a couple plays could have swung their way. So I don't think there's a long CBS list of proof that Zignetti and this IU regime can't step up in class. I think we'll need to see those data points at some point, if not this Saturday, then soon. But I do think they can hang around and keep this inside the number. But I can't fault you at all for that money line parlay.
All right. Thank you, Doug. And to your point, down from minus 132 to minus 118 with the added Penn State leg. It's a little greedy, I admit it, but there we have it. All right. For Doug, for Troy, for our entire team behind the scenes, thank you, as always, for watching the 10. Reminder, we do this show twice a week, every single week on the Bet Rivers Sports Network. We are part of College Sports Rush, where you can also get Sports Better's Paradise every single week with Jimmy Ott. We've got some great college football promotions for you all season long. Don't miss out on those college football squares. We will be back next week for Week 8 on Wednesday for the first of 2 episodes again. Good luck in Week 7. Thank you for watching. Bet responsibly. We'll see you next week.